topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask Good Questions podcast, broadcasting live every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on W4CY Radio at W4CY.com. This week and every week, we will reach for a higher purpose in money and life, as well as a focus on health and wellness. Now, let's join your host, Benita Bell Anderson, as together we start with Asking Good Questions.
Hello and welcome to the Ask Good Questions podcast. I am your host, Benita Bell Anderson, and I know that today's episode is going to be something that a lot of people are interested in because everywhere I go, it seems like people are talking about GLP and you're seeing all kinds of ads. So I have back Dr. William Summers, who was here previously. We kind of got started talking about it, ran out of time. So I want to welcome him back to the podcast stage. We're going to continue the conversation today.
Hey, Benita.
Hey, so let me just say just a little bit before we get into what we're going to discuss. Last time we talked a lot about the science and what it was, but now today we're going to talk with Dr. Summers about what it really means to, what it looks like to live well with doing a GLP. He is a physician that deals with this all the time. He's done a lot of YouTube videos that you can go check out. And so we're going to get into the daily reality of what to eat, how to protect your muscle and energy, how to build habits that make these medications work with your body instead of having some kind of crazy things happen. So in part one, we really kind of started cutting through the noise. We're going to hopefully give you today a conversation that centers around the playbook of how to do this well. So for anyone who missed part one, Dr. Summers, give us the quick version. Where did we leave? Well, we left off kind of, the science and everything. And why is that day-to-day management just as important as the medication itself?
Okay. Well, I think in summary, where we left off before, and a good place to start would be that anyone who's overweight, we can now measure at least 4 neuroendocrine hormonal signals in our bodies that are disrupted. And I like to say there are 4 buttons in our body messed up when we're overweight. And we eat, and we have to eat, and these things are messed up. We gain weight unfairly. And as we gain more weight, these same chemicals get more disrupted. And here we are on sort of developing what we now know as the chronic disease of obesity. Yeah. So the medicines that we talked about target specifically 1, 2, or 3, or 4 of these buttons that kind of put us back into a sort of more normal physiologic state so that we can do the behaviors and break the old habits into better habits to maintain weight loss. And of course, anything we do for weight loss, we must continue and sustain. And then I think a really big principle to understand is that our bodies are designed for weight gain and resist weight loss, which is why one of the reasons we see variations, the way our bodies adapt and respond to anything that we do for weight loss. So we got lots to talk about or to cover, and I'll answer questions to the best of my ability. But and I think if I spoke to anybody ever, I always say we should have, and I know we did talk about obesity is a chronic disease. And is so undeserving of any stigma or discrimination. We're all beautiful and deserving and loving people that should be treated fairly across all boards, and that we want to lose weight, not to be a better person, but to have a higher quality of life. And discrimination and ignorance need to go away.
Yeah, I was listening to somebody who was talking not about GLP-1s, but who was just talking about the fuel. We need to get in the habit of only putting into our bodies those things that are going to support us, right? So,
well, that ideally that would be great, but we all have that thing that probably doesn't support us, but we can manage in the context of an overall life or health style change that maybe can work on a moderate level and still be a part of our life in some cases.
Awesome. Well, now you have a clinic that you see people in. What tends to separate people who thrive on a GLP-1 regimen as opposed to those that struggle? What is it that separates those groups?
Well, that is a great question. And I think the first thing to understand that obesity is multifactorial and that there are many genetic factors, environmental, behavioral factors. And with certain patients, and you hear about them, I lost so much weight so quickly, and others are struggling, as you say. But any individual patient should be evaluated. Certain patients are on medications that influence these medicines or weight altogether. Some have a different sort of a microbiome in their gut, which is influencing their success as well. Genetic variations and the way that we respond on the receptor level to each one of these products as well. Stress levels are different among different people, and stress, of course, with cortisol, which we need when we have stress, is sort of like contra for what our goals are as far as making us hungrier and gaining weight. So there's so many individual factors. And then there are also some medical indications where people that have familial obesity, childhood obesity, and there's new and exciting development and tests for certain medicines that target things that are rare, but they do exist. So individually, I think the thing that I would ask people to be is be patient and then report to your provider if there is a non-responsivity that could be looked at from the history and physical into even your family patterns and other options that might be considered.
Well,
some people respond.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, some people, when you start now, each one of the medicines, the peptides, the GLP-1 or the GIP medicines, they have titration levels. And you do level 1, and if there's no side effect, you go to level 2. And these are designed to move up the board. Some people just readily respond right off the bat. Some people need to be more patient because you have to get used to it to go up the ladder, so to speak. But when you look at the measurements of efficacy of these medicines, they're all measured from the top doses. I don't think everybody needs to go up, but some people do. And if you start out and it seems slower, not to be frustrated, but be patient. And I think as you move up, and then again, other considerations, as we just mentioned, for any individual with medications and lifestyle changes or life circumstances and stressors and things like that.
So for somebody who might be just getting started, is there a mistake that people make when they're just getting going in the first few weeks? Maybe they're excited, but they really haven't figured out how to work on this.
I've been asked that question, and I think one mistake people make is they're going to just say, well, I've heard about these medicines, I'm just going to start them and just see what happens. And I mean, and really, even in that context, there's probably some success but when you really get serious and you're going to say, I'm going to do this in conjunction with maybe breaking habits and trying to be real about, like, in my emphasis is light on the type of sugars that we eat. So I think the mistake will be, one, to just say, well, it didn't work for me, but did you work with it? And two would be that you have to be patient. If you start it and you don't see it just as abundantly right away, you got to realize these, like, one medicine has 5 dose titrations, one has 6, one has 7 titrations. So it takes a little bit of time. And this is for the long haul. Safe medicines to treat the disease in our body that we now recognize just as it is a disease in our body.
Well, you hear all over the place about how these drugs curb appetite, dramatically. So if somebody's barely eating, if they're just not hungry, how do you make sure that they're getting the nutrients that they want to have, that they should have?
These were never designed to be anorexic. You need to eat. Our body needs nutrients, and people, like, there are medicines in the past that would just make people not eat all day long, and there's such massive muscle loss with that's so, like, contraindicated and contradictory to everything on board. But how do you make someone eat? I think that if somebody's at the point where they just like, I can't eat anything, they may back the dose down a bit, because we want to get rid of food noise, but not rid of our appetite altogether. And then recognizing the quality of what we eat. And I'll just say, in a broad context, farm to table, it's just healthy. And eat what you like, change it, but like it so it can be sustained with boundaries of, I always say, keeping the carbs under 100 grams a day. I think it's good advice for people, and massive amounts of protein. So if you were asking me, somebody, I'm not going to be very hungry, what should I eat? I would say, well, get some protein drinks and mix some protein powder with some fresh berries and put some kale and spinach or fiber in it and drink those. But they will be the necessary ingredients. And there are essential fatty acids like omega-3 and 6. So I think when people get on something and they see momentum, everyone becomes smarter. But if you're getting on that and not eating at all, I'd say maybe dose it down, because this is to help us regulate our blood sugars in ways that are necessary, and to control food noise, which is all sort of there because we're overweight in the first place, and our body allows more food noise.
Well, I see arguments and all kinds of stuff about protein. There is, oh my gosh, the camps for protein, animal protein versus plant protein, it's just all over the place. So why is the whole idea of protein so important? And how much are we really talking about? What do you need to be looking at?
I think that it is scary when I'll tell you women, as a rule, need 120 grams of protein a day, and men 160 grams of protein. Now, why do we need the protein? First of all, if you think of our body's metabolic rate as a motor speed, and the motor speed, obviously, if our motor's running faster, we need more fuel. As we lose weight, naturally, our motor is going to slow down. And the thing that slows our motor down most significantly is the loss of muscle mass. Now, when we eat a sugar and we store it as fat, okay, that's called lipogenesis, that we got stored fat. That stored fat, we want to get rid of it. So we're going to take fat and turn it back into sugar, which is called gluconeogenesis. And we go fat to sugar, we must include amino acids to make that even happen. So if fat is leaving your body, which we all hope will happen, so are amino acids, and they live in our muscle. And if muscle is the predominant affect of how fast our motor is, basically when you lose fat, you lose muscle, you lose your motor speed. If we will have enough protein, which supplies amino acids in our bloodstream, which will last a long time for protein, the one macro that stays in our bloodstream, then we'll use those amino acids instead of our muscle amino acids. And we don't need to break down muscle as we convert fat to sugar. So it's sort of muscle protective in that way. And in a person that already may be getting some increasing food noise, amino acids really turn off that food noise. It's the one macro that makes our body feel satisfied and less hungry for longer. So, but why do we need more protein? And it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot of protein, which is why I would say most people probably ought to just get their favorite protein powder at their favorite store and take little juice drinks through the day to maintain that amount, which is really, I call the superhero for weight loss. So let's say you're asking me to eat more to lose weight. I definitely am when it comes to protein. And again, why? To spare the muscle so that our metabolic rate is going to stay up and not go lower. And we burn more fuel, obviously, that way.
So walk me through a typical day. What's a good day of eating look like?
Okay. I always, I have gone through with a career of managing people with weight for weight issues. And I tried this diet and that diet. And you know what? This is what I've come to just recommend. Eat what you like, change it, but you have to like it with boundaries. And that gives us pretty much a broad set of circumstances, because everybody has their own individual tastes, likes, dislikes. I use the boundaries I mentioned earlier, 100 grams of carbs a day, and this superhero 120 or 160 grams of protein. So if somebody asks me particularly, I'm going to be big on the sugars and the type of sugars. We talk about processed foods. It's really involving sugars that go into our bloodstream too fast. So if I was going to ask anybody to eat what you like, change it and like it, to become sugar smart. And God sugars, complex sugars that go into the bloodstream controlled and slowly are so much more powerful for maintaining a healthy weight than the ones that we process and go into the blood way too fast. Yeah. So I would tell somebody, I think a good protein smoothie in the morning is easy and great for anybody that's on the run. But eggs are fine. I mean, you can make but if I was to advise anybody to give up the things, specifically sodas and even diet sodas, sugary drinks of any kind at all, because we're kind of addicted to those. And it doesn't mean I still drink Diet Cokes, but I drink
way less than I used to, and I'm trying to get off of it altogether.
Well, I think everybody has that thing. Mine is cheese dip, queso. And I'll just say, well, you know what? I'm just going to have a little weight, but I'm going to have my queso. Sorry, that's off limits. That is not going to be. So what I've learned to do, though, is, and not every time, but most of the time, I will peel some like red peppers and bell peppers and dip that into the cheese dip, and it makes it less harmful. So it's a compromise, and you do everything in moderation. Ice cream is my thing, and that would not be something any doctor is going to say put on your meal plan, but I'll just keep that in the freezer and take one spoon and get one bite, and that's it. But everything, I think that we can eat what we like, change it and like it and make it work. And so I don't want to tell. Now, I do like to recommend a book, The South Beach Diet, popular in the 90s, because it deals a lot with how fast the sugars that go, called the glycemic index. And you'll see that basically, again, anything that God created with sugar in it is going to be so much more healthy than anything that man created with sugar in it. To avoid corn syrups, high density fructose corn syrups, those products are in there, and they make us buy that product again, but they are so unhealthy in terms of our weight management. So I never say eat this. Now, people want sometimes instructions. I'll also refer them to the Mediterranean diet, the book that's probably the most studied and approved for hypertension, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease. And it's really a low fat diet with a lot of olive oil, but the sugars in there are going to be sort of the complex sugars. So if they needed a meal plan, I'd go South Beach diet, Mediterranean diet, but people will do that until they won't. So starting out from the baseline, eat what you like. What can I change? What's really bad on my plate? Well, if it came out of a package or a can, it's probably bad. Can you substitute it? And if you cannot, can you have less of it, less often of it? And allow us to not feel like we're in some sort of like food prison, but just trying to have a goal of being healthier for, again, a healthier quality of life.
I think what you're saying is a life. I mean, it's basically a lifestyle choice to choose to eat more healthfully, put better quality
100%.
food in your body. Right?
But yes. And a lot of people deal with food insecurities, and that's an issue we have to deal with, that don't have access to organic whole food types of the grocers I'm talking about, but even any individual could probably sit down with somebody, with your provider or someone in the office, to help you try to help yourself better. And there's no judgment, because I can tell you 10 things to do, and I might miss all 10 of those tomorrow when I'm eating. So don't judge me, but we're all human, and breaking habits you mentioned is probably the biggest challenge in all of us, because any habit, you have to take a 21-day of really maintaining strict focus on developing a change in that and the attention to it. And, we're all busy in life, and we defer, and you get stressed, and you go back to, but a daily failure is not a lifetime failure. We are going to make mistakes, but that doesn't mean it's over. We just stay on course, walk slowly, you still get there.
Well, talking a little bit about maybe, the mistakes you might make, is there any foods that you've seen make a side effect worse?
Well, okay. These medicines that we're talking about, any of the injections that are out there, they do not come with a do it before or after meals. And some patients find just individually, they might do it before they eat. Others do better after they eat. There's not a certain food that I know. There's certain medicines, not the ones we're talking about in this context, that would be where the fat would be a problem with the side effect or certain. But no, there's not really a food that's going to make you have more side effects or less side effects based on what you put in your mouth. In other words, if you had a higher fat meal, don't expect higher side effects on that. But I'm not saying to do that, but just saying there's not going to be a list of foods to try to avoid if you're doing these injections, other than the context of what you're trying to eat would be in the sort of healthy boundaries. And I'd leave that as a context. So no specific foods that will help you or hurt you, other than as far as a side effect of the medicine in that question.
I think the healthy thing to do is to focus on the foods that are going to be good for your body.
Right. 100%. And again, I want everybody to recognize that there is definitely, okay, let me start here. I've been a doctor for a lot of years, and I do a lot of blood tests on people, and they'll just, on their thyroid test, it's very commonly just like their thyroid's running low. And I'll say, oh, your thyroid's low. Here's some thyroid medicine. And no one's ever questioned that. I mean, like, oh, give that to me because I'll feel better. My body will work better when that low thyroid's fixed to normal. Well, in this context, we have 4 buttons that are low. And people are like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. That kind of scares me. So it's just like we're understanding this all in one big conglomerate, but I see it no differently than any other endocrine system, like a low thyroid. And not saying that everybody needs medicine for anything and everything, not at all. But to do understand it, like if your thyroid is low and I gave you medicine, you would not ask many questions or any. I don't think anybody's ever even challenged me on that. Yes, please. I will feel better and function better. And I feel for the people that have had difficulty with their weight management, that I would look at this as saying, well, your GLP-1 is messed up and your GIP is messed up and your glucagon is messed up. And we now know your amylin and your PYY is messed up. And these are all going to be targeted to put us back into a state where at least now put us back normal so we can do behaviors that matter. Because the frustration is when things are messed up in our body and we lose a little bit and stop and it all comes back. I mean, it's just why people kind of give up, because what they're doing, great efforts, don't seem to really produce many results when we have things in our body fighting against us. So,
well, let's ask another good question, and that would be the whole water. Again, a topic I've seen a lot of all kinds of places where people go with, how much water do you feel? Because I know it's been hard. I set an alarm now on my cell phone to remind me to drink water through the day.
Okay, how much water? That's very diligent. That's great. I used to generically say 8 bottles of water or 64 ounces, but now that's probably low by today's recommendations. I think for women, it's recommended to do 90, and for men, 120 ounces. And this is all going to be varied with also how much outdoor activity and heat levels, and probably, if anything, go on the greater side of that instead of the lesser side. And when I say water, and people say, I don't like water, flavored water, coffee, tea without the additives, I mean, other than maybe some lemon, it doesn't have to just be water, but fluids, and our body is designed to work. Just think of a river stream that's so low in water, nothing's moving there. Or if it's too much, it's flooded, but there's just a right amount where there's an ideal flow. And I think our body operates on the higher end, probably with women, probably between 90 to 100, and men between 120 to 160 ounces a day. And that just to keep the river flowing so that the nutrients go through and we excrete what we're supposed to excrete, and that all the organs are getting good perfusion and good oxygen at that level, and not sort of like scrambling to figure out how to move the water when it's low in our body.
I think I get probably about 60. So you're making me go, oh, I need to be drinking more than that.
I always tell people if you're peeing, you're losing weight.
Okay. Okay. And also the color of pee. I know that. I know the color of the pee.
Okay, right. You can use that sort of like almost just minimally yellow is pretty ideal. But if you think about we waste in our body, it was either going to be excreted through our bowels or it's going to be excreted through our kidneys and go out so if we're urinating, we're getting rid of waste in our body that if we don't get rid of it, we store it as fat, if that's sort of a oversimplified analogy. So but hydration, I think that when I just say generically 8 bottles of water, that's probably low by today's standards of recommendations. And of course, people around the
go ahead.
I just lost you.
Yeah. Well, let's move on.
I thought you were taking a long stare at that.
Yeah. Let's move on to side effects. I know that like nausea, stomach issues are probably the things that people really worry about. So what actually helps calm the nausea and the stomach issues down? Okay.
Let's break it down. What causes the nausea? Well, one of the ways that these medicines work, it slows our stomach emptying and we feel full longer, but that slowness can create nausea and some indigestion as well. And that's just sort of physiologic and a side effect. Now, there's also a part of our brain, it's called the CTZ. It stands for chemoreceptor trigger zone. And that's a little area in the brain that things in our bloodstream that are there will hit a button and cause us to be nauseous. So there's a direct effect from slow emptying, and some people are just sensitive at the brain level. So is there anything I don't know of anything to eat or not eat. Now, a lot of people require a little something for nausea. And I would just always say the nausea means we got to move up the ladder more slowly. It's almost always a dose dependent issue. So they'll start, say, a level 1 at any of the medicines. They're just different dose milligrams, but level 1, you do an injection once a week. If there's a little nausea, don't move up the ladder. If you do an injection of level 1 and you get nausea, let's break it down into a smaller, what they say, the microdosing. Let's get you used to it. And one of the things that people do get frustrated with, they may have that sensitivity of, I get so nauseous with any medicine at the brain level, but you're not really up high enough the ladder to get the weight loss effect at the receptor levels with the brain to control the food noise and to regulate your blood sugar. So there's what I'm saying is, probably anybody, we can get this broken down to a smaller dose and get used to it and walk up the ladder and get used to it slower to get you to the level that will be effective for weight management. So do I know of a food or no food or activity or no activity? Not necessarily. I've heard anecdotally, I recommended people to use the sub-Q fat in the belly, just like a clock to go around and do these weekly injections. Some people tell me, oh, I'd use my thigh, which is acceptable, with less nausea, more. So individually, I think it's a good discussion with your provider to say, now, when is the nausea? Typically, if it's just a typical physiologic side effect of the medicine, I see that if you inject on Monday, you kind of get this effect on Wednesday. And so some people more immediate, I think that sort of hits the brain like, shoot, okay, here's some Zofran or Phenergan or ondansetron or promethazine, the generic terms, and we can give you antiemetics. When do you worry about it? And when do you worry about the nausea? If you have abdominal pain shooting to your back, that needs to stop the medicine and let's do some blood tests and maybe come in for an in-office clinical evaluation. So nausea, okay, but pain with the nausea or really protracted, where the nausea and vomiting, because nausea is common, but vomiting is not that common. So if you're having nausea and vomiting, my red flag goes up a little bit more. Let's pay attention to you. And whenever you think about it, you can always do, and the test to always do to make sure pancreas are okay, would be an amylase and a lipase, a simple blood test done on a routine lab. It could be done stat, but a routine, draw it on Monday afternoon, you get it back Tuesday morning. It's a quick turnover, and then you'll see if these medicines are going to continue to be safe for you.
Well, it sounds like, that's just being smart, is like sometimes the side effects might be just part of the adjustment, but if it's extreme, like what you're talking about, then you need to go see your provider.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I always tell, I do phase 2 clinical trials with some pharmaceuticals in the development of these medicines. And the way the trials run, and like I said, there's different levels of titration. And the clinical trials, they'll have a patient do level 1, and they must go up to level 2 the next month. They must go to level 3 the next month. And there's a forced titration. So they report 40% nausea because most people in the real world do not need to do that. So we can tailor it individually. So I always think nausea, it's just so common. I'd say it about 10 to 15% of my patients. And it's sort of paradoxically or ironic that as we get more and more developed with more ingredients, more button fixers, a 1-button fixer, a 2-button fixer, a 3-button fixer, there tends to be less nausea as we get sort of more sophisticated with more ingredients in the medicine. But expect about a 10 to 15% if I was talking to providers and your patients. And if you explain to them in the beginning, this may happen, there's a lot less anxiety about it. And emphasize if there's nausea and pain, then we need to have anxiety about it. And that if you do have that, let's treat it. And to make it safer, these injection pens, we can repackage those in a way that all the volumes are 0.5 cc's, sterile vials, inject it and draw up less of it and make each. So it's called repackaging, which is legal, but needs to be done when somebody knows what they're doing, not to contaminate it, to fix maybe a 1 injection into 3 injections. But people can get, you get a medicine, you're sick, you don't want to do it again. You back off. So, but they're packaged for standard commercial release at certain levels because of population studies. But every individual has the right to respond and be super sensitive or a little bit insensitive, and that's okay.
Well, a lot of times you can, if someone is just given a prescription for something, that's pretty easy to just start taking something. But forming good habits, that's harder. So where do you tell people? Where do you tell people to start? So you encourage them to, get into the new habits that are better and not be overwhelmed.
It is the toughest thing. It's easier for me to talk about it than to do it. And I know that for sure. I do want everybody to realize that obesity was 10% at World War II, and it's 40% today. And the biggest change, and that's like for disease increase, that's like like astronomical rise, 10 to 40%. I mean, heart disease will go from 6 to 6.2%. You get upset. 10 to 40% is outrageous. And what is the big culprit? It's going to be refined or processed foods. And the sugars is basically what I'm talking about here. And the sugars that are added to everything we eat. So, and yet our brain loves those. It rewards our brain every time we have a bite of those simple processed sugars, which why they're in there, so we buy that again. But it's hard to break that habit, and you do, and it's not a misogynistic statement, but men tend to be able to drop the sugar a little bit more easily on their body than women get fatigue, and fatigue is a big side effect that's really undiscussed in the sort of the common side effects. But you might experience fatigue. But let me just say, if you can just push through that or slow the dose down, give yourself 2 to 3 weeks, you will feel so much better than you have ever felt. Because we have now gotten accustomed to, let's get that little bite of something sweet for that little pickup, which in 30 minutes is followed by a rise in insulin that makes us sleepy. So we have to have that sugar bite for a pickup. And that's just where our bodies are. So I think when I say, when I talk to patients initially, what do I want them to do? I ask them to all just become sugar smart. Just read about the sugar they're eating and the sugars how they are just, it's not just calories. They're all 4 calories in a gram. Any good sugar or bad sugar, same calories, but the response in our body is so different. And so 10% to 40%. And I'm going to blame the sugars on the greatest part of that.
Right.
So becoming sugar smart, and then really identifying, okay, I like a lot of people, I like my coffee in the morning. Well, I don't put sugar in it, but if people have a soda in the morning for their caffeine, they're used to that. And they're not going to tell me to stop my coffee tomorrow, but I'm not. So if you have less of it and get used to it, I promise you the reward is out there. And it's not that men are stronger by any means. Our body is just metabolically a little bit different. Like an Atkins diet of 30 carbs a day, men go, yeah, I'll lose weight fast and feel great. Women don't. They don't like that. But we're all built uniquely different in the way God made us. So I think I have to kind of caution women to expect a little fatigue along with maybe no nausea or some nausea. And if they can just kind of get through that, it's going to be greater for them. They'll get a big reward. So breaking habits, learning sugars, and trying to help them figure out, and I have struggles myself, how do I get that much protein? I mean, I just can't eat that much tuna in a day and chicken. And so I have to rely on the supplements, and I don't endorse anything commercially. Just find some protein powder that looks like has no sugar in it and make it something good to eat that you can put in the blender. And it's an easy meal, smoothies.
Right. Well, habits are something that I think is just going to be an ongoing thing, but kind of along with forming better habits, do you think that you're going to have to do, I've seen that where, some say, you're going to have to do this for the rest of your life.
Yeah, that's why I say, this is why I started out with this, the whole premise, eat what you like, change it, but like it, because you are going to need to do it for the rest of your life. Because anything that we do for weight loss, anything that for improvement, remember, we're designed to gain weight. Our body says gaining weight's so easy and good. Losing weight, our body doesn't like it. And it's got this whole system of the hunger hormone ghrelin is going to increase and make you start getting so much hungrier than even before, just as a compensatory so that we can put that weight back on. And the things that regulate our sugar, the GLP-1s and the PYYs and these other sort of GIPs and stuff, all sort of respond adaptively. So, which is another reason, and back to the first question, this is an adaptive. It's like if somebody loses weight and puts it back on like super fast, they blame themselves. And I think you got a really smart body because that's the way we were genetically designed. It's doing what it's designed to do. So if we do something and sustain it over a period of time, I would like to say our body gets used to it, the new us, because the brain has the imprint like, oh, you're supposed to have a BMI of 45 and you get down to a normal BMI, your brain, no, we got to put you back at 45. So we got to sit there long enough, which is another thing in the duration of medicine use. But I think it's a good thing to say. That's why I like to say my queso. I mean, it's on the table. I'm not going to give it up completely. I'll do it less often and maybe not have the corn chips to go with it. But so it's eat what you like, change it and like it, and you create a pattern of success, then you're able to say, I can do that the rest of my life. Instead of just being excited about coming in as a new patient and I'll give you a meal plan and you'll weigh these vegetables out and eat this meal. And I don't like salmon, but I'm going to do it. But you're not going to do that for a while. So I kind of find more success in helping people navigate their own taste buds.
Right.
Because there's lots of great things to eat.
Well, for me, it just comes down to how am I going to live for the rest of my life? How am I going to eat? How can I just continue to go down a better road on what I put in my mouth And along with that, let's turn to movement,
Okay.
exercise.
Okay.
The exercise should help you maintain your muscle mass, right?
Yeah. Well. I kind of say there's two exercises: the cardio and the moving, getting your heartbeat up, and that's great. And that everybody should be aware of cardio activity. That's great for your heart. And we need to have movement, and heart disease and stroke is the number one killer in this country, also associated with obesity, by the way. But resistance and building muscle is critical for weight management. More muscle. Remember, if we lose weight, we lose muscle and we get in a plateau or get in a hole. So maintaining muscle loss, and that would be doing like anything resistance. And it's not just lifting weights. There are yoga classes and there are home exercises, and even with limited mobility, things that you can do for muscle toning, and just little things really make a difference on the long haul. But it's intimidating to think, okay, I gotta go to the gym tomorrow and press this big old thing I can't lift. It's not any of that. And in terms of anything, movement, cardio, or what we say resistant training for muscle building, how do you get people started? I'm a big believer in this. If you're not having fun, you're not doing it right. And if you're not having fun, you won't do it very long. So I to say what exercises would you do? Well, I can open a book up and show you all these body, fitness guys and stuff but that maybe not, that would intimidate me. I have to do, so I think getting with a couple of friends, even a friend, walking every day with a friend, it's probably therapeutic for aerobics and mental health, just to kind of have somebody hash it out, getting people together in something that you can make it a fun, something that you enjoy, then you look forward to doing instead of you have to do it, and it's more longer to sustain. And so I think to find the activity individually, that would be like the taste buds that has the taste buds of, I think I can enjoy that and continue doing it. There's lots of things to do. It could be pickleball is a big thing right now with people.
I love
and that, it's great. And I mean, but you can just get, you get your friends out and do these crazy, kinetics of exercises and just have fun doing it. You can play the Twister game if you want to,
Yeah. Well,
so,
for those that are like some of our listeners are 60 and beyond, right?
Right. Yes.
Is there anything different about starting a GLP-1 when you're a little bit older?
Well,
What do you think?
I think, I want to emphasize the safety of these medicines, that as the studies are coming through and they've already been branded and continue to show evidence that, again, the number one killer in all of us, and especially as we age, will be heart disease and stroke. And these medicines have shown benefit to lower the risk of that. That's just huge, huge. All right. As we age, growth hormone in our body is made from the anterior pituitary gland, and through our adult, or early, especially after puberty and growing, we have lots of growth hormone to maintain muscle density, and we just feel better. And we naturally lose growth hormone as we age. So our muscle, all of us have a muscle decline in our body as we age, and we lose growth hormone. And I won't get into the discussions of the tesmorelins and the things that improve that. I mean, that's a side, but just recognize as we age, we lose muscle. Our metabolic rate slows down. Our weight loss tends to be more, it's called sarcopenic, like for the muscle wasting that makes you look almost like you're sick when you lose weight. You look unhealthy when you lose weight. So I think the biggest thing to balance and I'll say, I'm a senior, so I can say this, for the seniors would be to really emphasize the protein and resistance training. Are the medicines dosed differently? Not at all. No. And as we age, more likely are on other medications. And it's comfortable to know that these medications that we're talking about, the ones out now in the future development, are having no drug-drug interaction with any medicines in our bloodstream. They don't affect the liver in any way or the kidney in any way. They're just fixing buttons in our body that need to be fixed to give us a chance, I think, when you get to this point. So for the seniors, muscle loss is already on the table at a little bit more escalated place. And just knowing that's sort of where our a little bit more focus will go, to gradually, not tomorrow, but over the next months, to build a plan for a consistent muscle protecting and building, and they'll get more benefit from the medicine like anybody would with more muscle development. So the medicines are safe, but we are fighting a little bit more. We're already on a steeper hill to get started.
Well, one more question in the seniors group. A lot of people are already juggling other medications and conditions.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And so how does that change the day-to-day picture? I mean, should you be talking to your provider more closely if you're also doing a GLP-1 and you've also, and maybe if you lose some weight, you might be able to get off of the other medications.
That is the biggest point. First of all, everybody needs to recognize that abdominal obesity and just obesity in general is associated with 200 diseases. 200 diseases. I mean, we could do a bunch of podcasts on this. This is where I get fired up. 200 diseases and the rise of cancer, autoimmune diseases, inflammatory diseases because of the fat in our belly. And if you want to really measure success, measure your abdominal girth. Women, get it under 35 inches, men under 40 for your optimal ideal health. But 200 diseases are associated with that. So when you start using a lifestyle change, health style change, and or medicines with that for success, more than likely, many of the medicines will either be eliminated or lower doses of the ones you're on. And that's my biggest reward when people come to me and I don't see them every visit, and they'll knock on my door and they'll say to me, every day I hear this, I no longer take this and this and this medicine after I've took these things. So there's a lot of noise about some adverse events and things and anecdotal stories, but these are safe medicines that, and I always say the branded medicines, they, go get them at the pharmacy and use them, and they can be individually catered to anyone using them if you use them. Not saying everybody needs them, but if you get them, I think that you can go with confidence. Just like if your thyroid were low, you're getting a medicine to fix a hormonal signal that we're not as commonly aware of as the thyroid itself. The GLP-1, GIP, glucagon, amylin, PYY. So
Dr. Summers, we are almost out of time. I cannot believe it. Every time it happens. So I want to talk about the long game.
Okay.
We talked a little bit about maybe taking this. Maybe you're going to end up, if you build some good habits, and maybe you have some kind of maintenance dose that you just continue on, right?
Let's talk about that. I tell people anything you do to lose weight, you're going to have to do for a while. And I'll usually point to a box. If you chew on that box and it makes you lose weight and you get your goal weight, you better keep chewing on that box for a while. So in the world of how long do I take these medicines, let's eliminate one myth right here. A lot of people think, well, if I do these medicines and I stop them, I might have diabetes. If I take these medicines, my body's not going to work right. Not at all. It's just that anything we do for weight loss, we need to continue. When I was in the early training days of getting boarded in obesity medicine, they would say, someone did these medicines, how long do they need to stay on them? And there was like an answer for a test question, 2 years. That's very much outdated now. There are some academicians which would really just go on and preach about, would take these things forever. I do not agree with that. I think that there's a Harvard rule, the last I checked, that if you take a GLP-1 for a year, and we're talking like, 15 to 20% weight loss over that time, maybe 10 to 15%, even 5 to 10% is pretty modest, but pretty much going to happen. Your whole system of quality of health is improved, even at a modest level. But if you take that for a year and you get your goal weight, I think you ought to just put it in your head, you want to stay on it another year. And if you can, if you're on level 5 of a dose, maybe do that and go to level 4 and do that and go to level 3. I try to get everybody off the medicine. And if after a period of time they see some of their body going, aha, we're going to put that weight on fast, then we could reinitiate the medicine. Yeah. So some say forever. I'd say probably balance as long as you did to really get productivity and then to continue for the sustainability. But then I think most people come off of. People feel so much better. They're kind of scared to get off of them. I don't want to quit them, but less is always better when it comes to medicines.
Right. Well, it basically sounds like you just monitor. You should be monitoring your health regardless, right? You should be eating well, doing those things that are going to support your body. And it sounds like the sensible thing to do is just to monitor this and see what you need to do going forward.
That's correct. Everybody's different and unique. And we practice from the physician standpoint based on population studies, but every individual is not a population study and needs their own little sort of tweaking, so to speak. And that's what, we should be prepared to do as well.
I think that maybe we've talked about one of the biggest questions I've seen is how long do I have to take it? So we are just about out of time. And so I want to just, maybe, I'll have you come back in when we have some updates. Who knows that, in months or so. But what would be one piece of encouragement if somebody's like considering this, or what would you encourage people to do if they're really thinking about it?
Oh, if I had one shout out for humanity and encouragement, I would say love yourself, and love yourself, and then love your family and friends, and even in your enemies, find something common denominator to love about them. And I think that's a great starting place for everybody to be encouraged. Then we help each other, because we all can help each other. We want to live our best life, and we all have different experiences and cultural sort of influences, and a broad spectrum makes it very interesting. So to encourage someone, to let them know they're already beautiful, and we're doing whatever we're doing here just to live a little bit longer in a happier way, to see our kids, grandkids, great-grandkids, our great-grandpuppies, and all the other great things that life has for us.
Yeah,
So love yourself, love your family, love your enemies. I
was telling him before we started that in a couple of weeks I'll be going to the wedding of my first grandchild to get married, and it's you want to be healthy enough to be able to experience those kinds of things.
I think that's so wonderful. I always tell my patients the only reason to have kids is to have grandkids. So you'll that's kind of a joke, but that's a beautiful to be able to see your grandkids get married. That's a blessing. So that's amazing. And you're already beautiful. So you don't outshine the bride. Just show up and
right. I'll just show up. No chance of outshining the bride. That's for sure. So thank you so much for joining me today. This has been so helpful. I think we've asked a lot of good questions that hopefully will give people a little bit more clarity on how to deal with this. And
thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
You bet. And thank you so much for everyone for joining us on the Ask Good Questions podcast. We will see you next time.
Okay, thanks.
Today's episode is over, but we did ask good questions again, didn't we? Don't miss out as we broadcast live every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on W4CY Radio at W4CY.com. Join Benita Bell Anderson next week for more conversations with experts on finances, retirement, behavioral finance issues, health and wellness, and more. Until then, remember to ask good questions.